Yesterday, I was talking about whether or not you should open an Etsy shop, and I definitely think you should. Um, I went over my experiences. Black fly, shoe fly, don't bother me. Then I definitely think you should. I basically went through my experiences and how I basically got, I guess you could call it financial freedom, where I didn't have to rely on working for someone else to make a living. But I got thinking about it yesterday, and I realized that there's a more important question you should ask yourself first before you try to start working for yourself. As your sole source of income. There's a few, I don't know how to call them, like misconceptions about being self-employed that a lot of people have. And when you do start your own business, you're going to have your friends and family are going to believe these weird ideas that people seem to have about being self-employed. The main one, of course, is that if you're self-employed, you're not really working. Money just sort of falls from the sky into your lap. A lot of people think once they start working for themselves, they have that, if you build it, it will come sort of mentality where they think if they just open up a shop, people are going to come and start buying your products, and within a matter of days, you're going to be wealthy. The reality of working for yourself is a lot different. Usually people who work for themselves work about twice as hard and make about half as much money as you do working for someone else. So if you're thinking about going into business for yourself and running your own business, realize that it's not going to be instant or easy money. Don't think that you're going to be doing less work, and don't think it's always going to be fun, because when you're working for yourself, you're usually working by yourself, which means that you're doing everything. You're doing the parts that you love, the parts that you basically went into business in the first place for. But you're also doing all the other stuff. You're dealing with logistics, ordering supplies and preparing orders for shipping, and you're doing quality control. You're doing everything. Every possible job you can think of, that now rests on your shoulders. And one of the things I quickly realized was, when you work for other people, you have this luxury of being able to blame someone else when something goes wrong. Your boss didn't explain it correctly, or the people that work under you aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's always someone you could pass the buck to, whether it's true or not. Well, when you work for yourself, you lose that luxury. And it's kind of funny. Another thing is, the money. When you work for someone else, you pretty much know how much money you're going to have every time you get paid. When you're self-employed, that's not the case. You never know. You never have that guaranteed money every week. And so there are times when you make absolutely no money for a week, and then there's times when you make 3-4 weeks worth of regular pay in that 1 week. And it took me a while to learn how to manage my money better, because I would have one of these stellar weeks and I would go and buy an extra printer, or I would basically spend all that money, and then the next week I would get no income. and I'm scrambling trying to figure out how I'm going to eat. I used to call those ramen noodle weeks. But as time goes by, you I don't want to say diversify, because I'm not entirely sure if that's exactly the right way to put it, but you branch out, let's say, and you find other sources of income to supplement your mainstream, and eventually those ramen weeks disappear. But again, that's further down the road. And of course, if you're thinking about going into business on your own, if you already have a job, don't quit it. Like I said, I worked for 2 years after my Etsy shops took off, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was trying to pay off my debt. And number two, I was trying to see if it was going to last. I was a bit skeptical about the money from Etsy. I thought eventually the fad would wear out or something. I don't really know. But so yeah, I mean, imagine, working 40 hours a week. And on top of that, you're running your business and you're working another 40 to 60 hours on top of that. And it costs. When you're spending so much of your time and energy on trying to get your business running, and people don't understand. You're going to lose friends. You might even lose your significant other, because all of your attention is focused on your business, trying to get that up off the ground. So when people say, hey, you want to go out? And you say, I can't. I got to work on my business. After a while, they stop asking. So, before you decide to go or try to become financially independent and not have to work for someone else, make sure you're ready to pay the prices for that. It's funny, when I first started working, I was concerned, mostly, or started working for myself, I should say. I was concerned about my work ethic, which is probably the third thing to consider. When you work for someone else, you don't really have a choice. You either come to work and do the job, or you get fired and then you don't have a job anymore. When you work for yourself and you wake up and you're just like, I don't feel like working today. You're like, you know what? I'm going to take the day off, and nobody cares. But the problem with that is, if you take too many days off, then eventually your business is just going to disappear. Because just opening the door and sitting back and letting the magical money rain from the sky doesn't happen. You have to constantly be out there pushing and shoving and making sure people are aware of your shop to even go there. You have to keep releasing new products. And it's a constant struggle. Surprisingly for me, when I started working for myself, it was the exact opposite. I had to actually force myself to take days off, because I was getting so burned out. I was working 24/7, basically. And I think I was even dreaming about the business while I was sleeping. But, so I had to actually force myself to take weekends off, which I mostly take weekends off. I guess I treat weekends like I'm semi-retired. I still get some work done, but I do try to do fun stuff as well during the weekends. And it's kind of weird because, my business is based around what I love to do. So even when I'm relaxing and doing the things I love to do, it's still basically work. But so the line of separation is kind of blurred for me. But yeah, definitely take time off. The business is important, and putting time and effort into making the business what you want it to be is also important, but you also have to prioritize. Like for me, family always came first, whether I was working for someone else or working for myself. So if my family needs me for something, I'm there, without question. So for me, that was more important than anything else, and it still is. But yeah, it's hard to find that balance, and happiness it isn't about having a lot of money. It isn't about anything you may think it is. It's all about balance, and you need to find that balance between work and play and family and friends and obligations. And I think that's the struggle that most of us face in our life, is finding that balance, figuring out what's important to us and what's not, and making that hard step away from the things that aren't important. And hopefully that brings us one step closer to the things that are important, the things that will make us achieve that balance and eventually become happy. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about. I mean, other than all the things you might think about, there are these little, I guess, side effects of owning your own business. Things that you really have to, well, that looks like today we're going to get a little rain. Eesh. Oh well, I guess we need it. So yeah, there's a lot of things to think about. Well, sidetrack there. A lot of things to think about when you're thinking about going into business for yourself. It's not an easy road, and you'll have to come to terms with that, and you'll have to get used to explaining that over and over to your family that yes, you really do work, even though you're self-employed. But for myself, it was mostly the freedom to do what I wanted to do, as opposed to being forced to do what someone else wanted to do. A friend of mine put it well, is like, well, time to spend the next 40 hours of the week making someone else rich. And now you get to spend, when you work for yourself, you spend all that time making yourself, I won't say rich, but richer than being unemployed, I guess. But again, it's if money is your main motivation, then you might want to better off work for someone else, because when you're self-employed, the money just takes a while to come. But there are the upsides too, you know. I mean, you don't have to drive back and forth to work. You know, whether it's a sunny day and you'd rather be home or sitting outside working, or, you know, whether you'd rather just not drive through the blizzard just so you can make someone else rich. For myself, I couldn't deal with the working for other people, and, you know, if it's slow, you don't need me, let me go home. Don't hand me a broom and say, hey, we're going to pay you $27 an hour to sweep this 10 by 10 foot area for the next 6 hours. You know, don't waste my time, basically. So for me, it was worth it. I mean, for all the ramen weeks, for all the struggles, for all the loss, for all the aggravation, I love every minute of it. It was worth it for me, but you have to make sure that it's going to be worth it for you before you take that step. And definitely don't think you're going to quit your job and start a business and be okay. You will not, unless you have immense wealth. Another nice thing about starting a business while you're working for someone else is that you can do it slowly. You know, I started with one printer. It took me 2 years, and I was up to 5 or 6, but it was gradual. It was slow. As the business increased, I was able to, you know, purchase more equipment and expand. And then when I finally was able to stop working for someone else and rely solely on the business for money, that's when it really sort of took off, and I was able to go into other businesses. Or, well, I mean, it's not other businesses, find other sources of income, I guess. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. I hope this doesn't sound like I'm trying to dissuade you from working for yourself. I'm just trying to give you sort of a reality check that it's not easy. It's not easy money. It's not sitting back and just smoking a big cigar and getting buried in piles of money that magically rain from the skies. But is it worth it? 100%. If you're the kind of person that struggles working for someone else, then this might be your solution, And I guess that would be the final thing, really, if you're thinking about doing a business and working by yourself. Do it as a side hustle while you're still employed with somebody else. Who knows, you may hate it, And if you do, you still got your job to fall back to, Or maybe your super great idea for a business isn't a viable idea. Maybe it's not going to work, As long as you don't make any kind of drastic, quit your job and open your business the next day sort of move, you're really only risking maybe a small amount of money just to get you started. And some of your time. And in the end, no matter what you do, the only thing any of us really have is time. And it's just determining how you spend it, or what you spend it on. So you have to ask yourself some hard questions about, are you the kind of person that can do this? Because it's not for everyone, For me, anytime I think about giving up and saying, this is too much, it's too hard, I'm just going to go back and work for someone else, I start talking to one of my friends and, hey, how's work going? And after about 20 minutes of listening to them gripe and complain, I realize, yeah, I made the right choice here. And I go back to work. So, there's always that. But, as always, I don't have all the answers. I'm just sharing my experiences and my thoughts on these things, and hopefully it'll help. Really, in the end, all of it, that's mainly what these videos are for. Share my experiences and hope that someone out there can find them useful.